Would you like to discover powerful ways to drive change in your organization? Would you like to learn about the latest concepts in people strategy, HR effectiveness, and optimization that will help your organization achieve a competitive advantage in your industry? Then HRBP MBA Masterclass with Ron Thomas is for you. With today's uncertain business landscape, HR leaders now play a pivotal role in what some say is a paradigm shift in the industry. This comprehensive 3-day program, in-person or virtual, will empower you to embrace a more strategic mindset, enhance your decision-making skills, and help your organization to the next level. To register as a group or individual, email us at info@strategyfocusgroup.com or visit our website at www.strategyfocusgroup.com.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it's the CEO series, where we bring together global leaders, innovators, disruptors from across the globe. Our guests today, Heather Keets Wright and Kelly Smith, both former co-workers of mine. They now run the hottest branding agency in the country. So let's all welcome Heather and Kelly. How are you guys?
Hi, Ron. How are you?
Good to see you. Good afternoon from my side. Good morning from your side. It's good to see you both again during our formative years, as we were saying earlier. So let's get started. Heather, you now run one of the hottest branding agencies in this space. Walk us through your journey as an entrepreneur from corporate to owning your own firm.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having us. Thank you for lending your platform to us for this session. We're super excited to be here. And thank you for supporting us over the years. And thank you for saying we're a hot agency. I appreciate that the most, I think. Listen, it's been a career-long journey to get here. I'm a journalist by trade. All I have literally ever wanted to do was be a journalist, be a writer. And I've done that. I'm still doing that in various forms. But I went from, I guess, what maybe I would describe as traditional journalism, print journalism, magazine journalism, to agency world. And it was in that agency experience over about a decade ago that I realized I'd gained enough experience, amassed enough of a network to really go out on my own. And I decided just before 2015 that I would stop building equity in other people and in other people's businesses and start building equity in myself.
Wow, that kind of sounds like me, but that's another story. Yeah, so you had a lot of key points there. So at a certain point in time, you said, you know what, I can do this on my own. Yeah. And you were unique because your husband is a documentary filmmaker, and you guys both started this dream together.
Yeah, absolutely. We always describe it as a family business. So he's a journalist as well. Graduated from Howard University. I graduated from Syracuse. So we left school doing exactly what we wanted to do. And he was at ESPN for many, many years and realized, kind of the same thing. He fell in love with documentary filmmaking, having made a couple of 30-30s and 30 for 30s. And we realized, you know what, with our talent, we can actually do this right now. And we had people in our networks who would become clients say to us, you know what, if you went out on your own, I would hire you. And that's all I had to hear. I did have to hear it a dozen times, but it's all I had to hear.
Wow, 30 for 30. Yeah, I love that. So Kelly, let's walk us through from Money Magazine to Real Simple to Martha Stewart on the 40 Deuce.
Yes.
40 seconds for the uninitiated. The trajectory. So what are some key takeaways from your journey?
Yeah, well, again, thank you. I echo Heather and thanking you for having us. And it's really funny. Heather and I met before Martha Stewart. So I know our connection for the three of us is our time at Martha Stewart, but we met at our very first jobs at Time Inc. So Heather was at Entertainment Weekly. And like you said, I was at Money Magazine. And that was a big place to navigate. There were not many of us, many Black women, many Black people in that company. And so to find somebody who was starting out at the same time and doing the same things, although at a different company, was actually career changing and life changing, as you can see now, these however many years later. but yeah, so it's really great. We started at Money Magazine, at Time Inc., one of the biggest companies in the business, and went to Martha Stewart. And then after that, touched every kind of publishing. So I feel like I've been on every corner of the publishing industry, on the consumer side, on the trade side, doing content for restaurant trade magazines and business publications, and then getting into content marketing with Pace Communications. So one of the things that Heather and I have always done is hired each other, right? We connected early on and recognized each other's talent. And depending on wherever we were in the world, we had work to give one another, because not only are we friends, but we know each other's talent. So we've always hired each other along the way. And I think that has been critical to where we've ended up and why we're working together today. So it's been a great journey. I love it. And what I have learned along the way is that we really are able to do this anywhere and for anybody. And I think I've picked up something along the way at every one of those roles that just carries over into the next one. And I love that about this.
And that's why I said the hottest branding agency in the US. This is why I said it. All you're bringing to the table. So, you know, when you look back on your career, you have a job here, you have a job here, you have a job here. The way I've always looked at that, it kind of brings everything together. So if you package all that knowledge, you can take it to whatever level, whether it's with another job with titles or in your own kind of branding agency. Was that kind of the thought behind that? Like, I've done enough of this, let me try this new thing.
Yeah, I think absolutely that's exactly what it is. We're very fortunate to have built upon the work that we do at every step. And I know a lot of people can't say that. I've never experienced a career change. I was just on a podcast where I called the career refresh. So I may have refreshed my career and switched gears, but I've never experienced a career change. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think when you're a creative person, you have a passion for a thing. You have a passion for making things. That has been my career. That's what I do for a living. I make things. It's sometimes different things. It used to be print magazines, and now it's integrated marketing campaigns for our clients. So to me, it's all been the same things. I amass the most talented people. We come up with amazing ideas, and we make videos, and we create articles, and we make social media copy. That's different. The assets are different, but the creativity is the same.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I think that's one of the things, and Heather says this all the time too, I think this is one of the things that helped us continue to adapt as the industry changed, right? So publishing has been through it, and this has been our field, like Heather said, from print to digital to content marketing to, all of that. And I think the thread that runs through all of it, and I try to remember it when I forget Heather says it, it's storytelling. We're storytellers. Right. And so no matter what the assignment is, no matter what what we're trying to accomplish, whether it's a video or whatever the format is, we find the story and we go find the most interesting parts of it. And then we get to dig in and do the fun stuff. So that's why it's not, I won't say it's never been scary or it's never been risky, but going in, we know that. So we know that we're up to the task.
Yeah.
Yes. So we always run into those scary moments. You said it could be scary, like what's next. But I think when I think of magazines and having all of us, were in the magazine business, when we were at Martha Stewart. And Martha, if you're watching, we were just talking about what a great place it was to work there. And I posted this also in the alumni group. So some alumni people are probably watching too. It was the greatest. I came from IBM to come there. It was the greatest amount of talented people I have ever seen in my life. And I don't know whether I'll ever, at this stage of the game, Kelly, you like the way I phrased that, at this stage of the game.
Yes, not years. Yes.
I will not be able to do it. But you've gone through major transformations in the magazine industry. How do you keep bouncing back and kind of inventing? Is it what I call it, reinventing yourself, or?
I don't think it's reinventing. And I think the commonality or the common thread throughout all of it is we want to tell those stories. Like Kelly just said, I want to talk to people. I want to interview people. I want other people to hear their stories. And we're working on some projects now that I'm so passionate about, and I'm chomping at the bit to get out there to the world. That is the piece that's never changed. And I think I realized a long time ago that what I do as a creative is probably 50% talent, right? A God-given talent, and 50% skill. So what the career is showing you is the 50% skill. I've gone to different places to pick up different skills, right? Different capabilities. I started in print magazine journalism, which was a thing, a big giant thing when I got out of school. It became less so. I switched over to digital. I think we used to call ourselves digital natives because when the internet happened, I jumped in immediately. I was like, I'm doing that. That's crazy. I know those people sit in the back of the office and nobody goes there, but I love that. And I want to learn about that. And I want to go do that. And then I switched over to content marketing, right? Working for an agency and creating those same kinds of stories for brands, because brands realize that, you know what, our business folks and our marketing folks aren't terribly good at creating content that's engaging. Who are the people that do that? Those are journalists, right? Those are storytellers, those are writers, those are editors. And so I switched to that. The commonality has always been, I want to tell a story.
Yeah. And I always say that to your point about the experience we gained at Martha, I always say that for me, who didn't jump into digital as fast as Heather, didn't jump into content marketing as fast as Heather, but got there eventually, I think Martha Stewart was one of the first places that we got a taste of what this thing called content marketing or branded content was. And I'll remember I was working at Martha Stewart Weddings and Martha Stewart Baby Kids. It was right around the time that Martha Stewart launched a line of products in Kmart. And so we had to figure out, how are we going to show these products in the articles that we're writing that are true editorial without compromising, all those years ago, those two things really were separate. You kept the line between church and state. You didn't talk about advertising and you didn't combine it with editorial, real content. And I think that, I can't say that she necessarily was the first, but it was really early in that process and we had to navigate that. And to your point about how do you keep adapting, you just recognize what's familiar in each thing. So we were doing content marketing before it had a name, I think. And that really prepared us to be able to do it in the next step and the next step and the next step.
That's a great point. Let me just piggyback on that, Ron, if you don't mind, because we always talk fondly about our time at Martha Stewart, and it was a really, really incredible training ground, and not just for the creatives, the makers who were there. I mean, and I'm calling them makers now. We didn't call them makers then, right? So everything that's old is new again. But it was a really great training ground for digital. One of my first tasks there was to help the team take her 15 years worth of broadcast video, digitize it, categorize it, provide a taxonomy, and make it accessible on the web and eventually on all of the other platforms where people consume her content. And that had nothing to do with storytelling per se. It was on the nerdy side of digital, right? But I loved it. It's where I fell in love with taxonomy. And I guarantee you're never going to have anybody on your show that's going to say, I fell in love with taxonomy. So I'm going to claim that. It's where I learned to build information and create it and structure it in a way that people who love her could get to it. So it was a really great training ground for that. For me, Kelly was doing something different. And then the last thing I'll say about that experience is that we didn't realize it until we were long gone, Ron, but we were one of a handful of Black people at Martha Stewart. And I told Kelly, I think you were the highest ranking on the creative side, Black person on that Martha Stewart team. And that's something that's worth saying. It's something that's worth sharing. We didn't think about it. I didn't think about it at the time. I wasn't like, oh, look, I'm managing editor at marthastewart.com. But I certainly noticed it every day.
I know. I got a story to tell on that one because I went to a dinner party New York, you know, when you kind of in the loop, you go to all these things. And I told someone I was a vice president of human resources. They did not believe it because they always assumed Martha Stewart looked one way, you know. Yeah, what do I have to do to prove that? You know, this. Do you really work there? And I had a meeting, and I heard this story later in life because it said, remember when we came to that meeting, they were coming there to find out whether you really worked there because they thought you were kind of a front.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was like Heather said, you know, we were busy having fun. We were busy doing the work. We were busy learning what we needed to learn. It was a really good experience. And honestly, you know, at some point, I think anywhere along the way, part of having a career is learning, when isn't this right for me anymore? And it certainly did get to a point where, you know, you look at where can you go and are other people different titles and things like that. And then you have to make a decision. And I think, you know, that Martha Stewart wasn't the first or the last place that ever happened. So I think part of having a career and moving forward in your career is making sure that you are keeping an eye on that, because you can certainly just be absorbed in the, you know, this is really cool and fun. Yeah. And I could be here forever. But there is, you know, it's something that I think we are always aware of, and now post George Floyd, post all of that stuff, more people are aware of.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that, because that was a segue, diverse thought, branding, and every company has a statement and they go through all these things. But for people that look like us, and we have gone through all of these kinds of things, how does a company tell the story in the age of the post reawakening, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are called on a lot for supporting our clients in creating DEI content or helping to tell their DEI story. And, you know, you need like 4 hours for Kelly and I to go through this. We talk about this all the time. I think the way to do it, first and foremost, for any brand, anywhere, no matter how big or small you are, is you have to be true to yourself. And I know that sounds a little hokey, but if you're not there, if you don't have a diverse staff, that's where you start. And that's what you tell people. It's really hard to be honest about yourself. But here's the thing about that. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret when you're not diverse, right? We can look at and I think a lot of people have gotten savvy about removing their About Us pages or taking people off of their About Us pages so you don't really see what we look like. But I have news for you. We can still tell. If I'm interested in your organization, I can read your content, I can look at your social media, and I can tell if there is a diverse team of people creating your messaging, right? I can go on LinkedIn and I can see who works for you. And I can tell if you have a diverse or not diverse staff. And the thing to know is people are doing that. Before they invest their time and energy in pursuing you, even for a job, they're looking at you to see this is a place where I'm going to feel represented. And the other thing I want people to know about that is they may still do business with you. They may still try to apply for a job to work with you. But what they want to know is, what is my experience going to be like? If I'm up for a challenge and I love this brand and this organization and I want to engage, I may still go there. But now we have the tools to know who you are and what you stand for. The content we create will help you get that message out there. I don't think there's anything wrong if this is your story. We're not very diverse right now, but we're trying to do better. And here are the things we're doing. If that's your story, we can help you tell it. You just have to be honest and want to tell it.
Yeah. And we've also found that one of the things that, because we're journalists, because we go in and find stories, and we always want to tell that honest story. So exactly what Heather said is, if that's your story, that's the story we're going to tell. But part of the work of going and finding the stories is that they're in your company. And so a lot of times when we are doing our work for our clients, we'll find out, we'll be bringing stories to them or creating a situation where people are allowed to speak freely and be honest and feel comfortable talking to somebody who looks like me or somebody who looks like Heather or anybody on our team. And a lot of times those companies are hearing that for the first time, and it's been inside their business this whole time.
Yeah, I think there has to be an education of this so-called C-suite, because you mentioned About Us. So I see the statement everybody made statements after this incident and everybody got on board. And sometimes when I had some free time, I see a statement, I go click on the website, I click About Us. And when you said About Us is removed now, I said, okay, so you all of a sudden, there's this great reawakening, and I'm now understanding what's going on, and I'm going to make a difference in doing that. But I look at About Us, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And those statements are interesting. Kelly, I'll let you share this because we just, for a client in financial services, we just did an exercise where we took a look at some of those statements. And I kid you not, some of them are exactly the same, almost word for word. And that's unacceptable. And we're doing that work because we're journalists, we're in branded content. But regular people are seeing that too. If you think they're not onto you, and if you haven't refreshed your statements since George Floyd was murdered in 2020, it's time to do that. And it's time to figure out, how do we tell a more authentic, ongoing, evolving message? How can we put as much time into DEI as we put into product marketing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and it's true. We did. No one's going to look at it the way we looked at it because we were doing an audit, but where we compared side to side. But it really isn't that hard to figure out. If you go to an About Us page and you see stock photos that you may have seen elsewhere, I think one of the things that we remember, and we always know it's ingrained in us, is that people are looking. A lot of times I think companies think that people are only coming to your website and only consuming your content. And even if they are for that particular part of their life, or because that is their work, they read a lot of things, a lot of places. And so I think, that is the other thing that we always bring to this, because we read a lot of things in a lot of places, right? So it is not happening in a vacuum. And as Heather said, people can see through this right away. So at the end of the day, this is all about authenticity. And if your story's not fully baked, it's not one and done either, right? If you're evolving, you say where you are right now, and then you update that story as you evolve. It is an ongoing thing, and it is why. And I think that that's what people are starting to understand now. And, and it's so important, because it's almost worse to just do the canned answer.
Yeah, but if you don't have someone guiding you like your agency, I think that's cool. The statement that we just put out.
Right.
Yeah. So I think I'm cool. Oh, did we cover that? Check. We've done that.
Check the box.
Check the box. Yeah. I love doing that work. And I think the things that brands underestimate is how much someone might be willing to go along for the ride with you. People want to be a part of change. They want to be a part of evolving something. So this idea that you are fully baked, your DEI is it's in place. I get it. We don't have to go there. Let's do it together. That's actually quite appealing to some people.
It's really funny. So to bring this back to Martha again, because as we say, we picked up all these lessons along the way, and this is the thing for that. When we were at Martha Stewart, and she was in, serving time, right? We were all continuing to tell stories in the same way that we told them. And it was very, again, scary, right? What do we do? What do we say? And I think one of the things that she taught us was you tell the truth. She came out of that experience and said, here's what I learned. And she was excited about it and curious about it and dying to tell these stories. And we were like, are you sure? Absolutely was sure. And I think, it might be a strange segue, but I think the lesson that I take away from that is just tell the truth. Say what, everybody knows. I mean, people will figure it out if you don't know right now. So just tell the truth and stand in it and be honest about it. And like Heather said, people will be willing to go along with you on that ride. Some people, not everybody will, but I think one of the things that we know now is everybody's not for everybody. And people that really do believe in you and appreciate your honesty and authenticity will go along with you.
Let me give you a story on that, because I was talking to her and I mentioned she went away. She said, went away. I went to jail.
I don't know how to say it still.
If I know somebody, I'm trying to brush it up, make it look cool. And you're saying, no, I went to, she said, just tell exactly what it was. And that was the same thing she told me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
I got a question here from a good friend of mine, and they said, when you and your husband start this company, did you ever think, oops, what did I do if it doesn't work? And you did. What do you tell yourself? Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, every day, right? Every day. Oops, what if it doesn't work? And this year's is tough. Marketing budgets are tough this year. If it doesn't work, I'll go do something else. But what made me finally pull the trigger on starting the agency? So I realized that I wanted to do it long before we did it. Okay. And what made me finally pull the trigger on it is I was more afraid of getting to the end of my career, never having done it, than actually starting the business, right? I could not have lived with myself if I thought, God, I really always wanted to start an agency and I just never did. Even saying that gives me like the willies. I don't like it. I don't like to live like that. I don't want to have any regret that big in my life. And I knew I could do it. I knew I could at least try it. I had people in my corner, my husband and Kelly among them. And with the two of them, literally all I needed. That's all I needed. I don't care what the business is. I could be selling, ice cream on the street. I would call Kelly and be like, we're going to sell some ice cream on the street. And she would be like, girl, yes. Let's do it. That's what this friendship and this relationship is. And Kelly and I have started, by now we probably started 12 magazines in our careers, right?
At least in our heads,
in our heads, for sure. We've done this before. So when I realized that this was going to be the thing, and I love telling this story about the moment, our husbands are friends as well, when kind of the four of us realized that this could happen. We were like, I think it's time. I think, I've got clients who are ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and start this business. And would you join me? And Kelly wrote me this letter saying, A, yes. B, yes. C, how do we do it? And if you're saying we can really do this, I'm in. And you tell this better than I do. I'm in. Here's the thing you don't ever have to worry about. If it doesn't work, we're still friends. There's no regret. We're going to try this thing. We're going to ride it till the wheels fall off. And if it stops, then we'll go do the next thing. And when she told me that, I was like, okay, this is actually going down. And I was like, yes, you're going to come on and you're going to be our chief content officer. And it literally just fell into place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're fortunate. I mean, I think that is all true, but it's because of who Heather is, who Mark is, these are talented people. We're not doing this just because we're friends, right? These are the best in the business. And so I'm really lucky that I happen to have connected with people like this, with someone like Heather early in my career, so that we were able to become friends. But this is about talent. It's about skill. It's about putting in the work. I am learning so much from this experience, but also the fact that Heather is a great person, a great business person. She's put in the work to understand that. And that piece of it is the part that really makes this work, because it's not like any of us can just be out here starting agencies. We really do not. You have to understand there's a real around this. Yeah. It's not all passion and fire, right? It is some real knowledge and time and work. And I see her applying for certifications and taking courses and things like that. So it was an easy yes because of those things as well. But as she said, I think it's the same conversation as, or maybe different, but from a friend point of view, absolutely. You have to sit down and have that really serious conversation. You can have it over wine, or you can have the wine afterwards.
Well, the wine helps.
It always helps.
It helps the storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. It always helps.
That's for sure. So we got another question.
Easy yes.
Question that says, how do you prioritize your North Star when evaluating the work project as they present themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we have a woman on our team, Jessica Tribbett, and she's our client experience lead. And this is her constant reminder to us. Everything doesn't have to be a yes. Everything isn't for you. And when you need money, it's really hard, right? To say no to some work. And we've said yes to some work that maybe we shouldn't have, that maybe wasn't as enjoyable, but that's all part of being a business. That's all part of being a grown-up, right? But you have to have a North Star. And I have, you know, things that I've said, okay, how do we evaluate an opportunity? Does it serve us well? Does it conflict with our values, right? We are here to tell untold stories about Black people, to support Black culture, to build Black economy. That's why we exist. If we can't do that with our work, if an assignment isn't contributing to that positively in some way, then it is not for us. It's not for us. And there are things we've said no to because of that. And the third thing, if we're not being respected, if I'm not being respected by a client partner or a potential client partner, I will shut it down. And I've shut it down in the past, because one of the things that was so problematic in my career, Kelly and I, and I'm sure, Ron, you have this experience as well. When you are the only Black person in an organization, at a company, and we now know, because everybody has learned about these experiences of people who are the only, right? Hopefully you've read about it. We've heard a lot since George Floyd was murdered about what that's like for a person to be in a space where they are the only. And I'm here to tell you, I have spent most of my career in that position. I could go the only Black person, the only Black woman. I could go weeks, and I promise you weeks, without having a meeting with another person of color. And when you're in that position, you have to have the mental strength to say, I'm not the problem here. This is the problem here. And when you've overcome that, and you've gotten out of that, and the actual trauma that creates when you're in that position, when you've moved beyond that, what you know for sure is you're not going back to that, right? And so that's what I know about me in this business. I'm never going back to a scenario where I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm the only, and I'm not building equity in me. Never. And if our work doesn't contribute to the ending of that scenario for creative people of color, then that's not work we should take. So that's our North Star. You can hear in my voice, I know how passionate I am about that. And if I find that there is something that's not contributing to that end result, then we don't do it.
Ooh, you took me back a ways. You gave me flashbacks, you know, as you were telling that story. So I see what you're saying about telling, you know, storytelling, because you nail that. I mean, you nailed it, because every person of color has gone through that, you know, being the one. And like I said, people would come there to say, I want to take a meeting. They just came there to see whether I was really, whether I was a fraud, because you know, you don't live there.
Yeah. And Kelly and I have had that similar experience. I mean, managing editor of MarthaStewart.com, Kelly, executive, I can't remember your title, executive editor. People look at you like, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure of it. Right. It took a while. And it's not the only place that I've worked where I've had people say that to me. Right. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a meeting as the SVP executive creative director of an agency where people do a double take. I can see you doing a double take. I can see you looking at Heather.
You know, the senses are on all the time.
Well, the fun part is that her name is Heather and my name is Kelly Killian. So it's like, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
That is the best part, I must say.
Yeah, something's missing there.
Black Heathers, you know.
Yeah.
I think the other part of that too is, in my experience, one of the ways that is absolutely true. It started, I grew up in Minnesota. So I was the only Black kid in my class and in my school and in my town and in my everything. And so it's a relief actually to get to this point and not always have to be dealing with that. Still dealing with it a lot because it just is the way of it. But it showed up a lot for me too, in the way that, you know, I always heard people say, well, just this one more thing. If you could just do this one more thing, we know you're ready. We know you're ready for the next step, for the promotion, whatever. When you do this one more thing, then, you know, it's almost like the proving that you're real, right? And it's like, what? Wait a minute. You know, as you watch people who are on your same level get promoted, get moved ahead, get that project. It's like, why do I have to do the one more thing? And it is this constant, proving of yourself. So to be at a place now, as Heather said, where you get to walk away if it is not the right, it's scary, but what we know at this point is it's the right thing to do for us.
Yeah.
And for the business.
So I've got to have a glass of wine after this conversation.
Now you know why we drink the wine. This is why we drink the wine.
Like one side to the you guys are just nailing it on all the thoughts. I'm on a flight and I'm thinking about things. I'm thinking about careers and all these kind of things. And all these times you were up for a role and just did not quite make it. And you go and you do something else, but what you really wanted was there. And all of these kind of things just, I got to have the wine after the show. That's for sure. So let's talk about, because sometimes buzzwords just get into the lexicon, and everybody's using storytelling and all these kinds of things. So you folks have told so many stories. You connected starting point to here, and you told a story, and it wasn't just kind of concocted or whatever it was. What is storytelling for the uninitiated or people that are not in marketing or may not be in business? What is storytelling?
That's another good one. And as much as I love the word storytelling, I do sometimes hate using it. Sometimes the marketing industry has a way of grabbing onto a word and then just diluting the heck out of it. Storytelling these days, as it's used, is when a brand uses its authentic stories about its people, its customers, and its products to help sell those products, right? Mm-hmm. So what happened with the internet, when the internet happened, we suddenly had different ways of consuming content. So it wasn't just print or broadcast. It was all of these other ways. And when you think about it today, think of all the social media channels, all of the out-of-home advertising that you experience in a day, all of the messaging that you're bombarded with. People are constantly hit with messaging, so much so that we tune it out, right? We just don't even see it. So brands are really challenged to get their messaging across. And there's two things that have happened. One, I not only have to get a message out there, but because my audience is bombarded with it, I have to break through, right? I have to cut through. I have to do something. And what audiences, consumers have told brands for sure is that I recognize when you're selling to me and I don't like it. And so if you have to get a message to them without selling to them, you have to tell them a story. You have to think of a way to engage them, to interest them without pushing your product. And the simple way that I explain it to the uninitiated is the insurance companies, right? They got to sell their product. Everybody needs insurance. Nobody wants to talk about insurance, but everybody wants to talk about feeling safe. A number of times Kelly's mentioned, that felt scary or this is scary. Everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants their family to be safe. Everybody wants to protect their stuff. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about safety and what that means to you. We were just talking about safety at work, right? And that's an experience that a lot of people can relate to. So I want to talk about safety. I'm going to eventually get to your product, to your widget, and I'll eventually talk to people about that and we can sell it. But first, I'm going to have a conversation about safety. And that's how we're going to approach this insurance thing. So it's kind of a roundabout way. Business people get a little bit nervous about it because they're like, well, why are you taking them out of the sales cycle? There's a user journey and blah, blah, blah. Well, people will abandon you during that user journey. They will abandon you, abandon that cart. We've all done it. Think I'm going to buy this. Oh, no, I'm not. I've been distracted. There's something shiny over there. So storytelling is a way of bringing people back and also humanizing the brand, right? That's the other thing that consumers have told us over the past couple of decades, that I don't want to deal with big, giant, cold, unfriendly companies. I don't want that. What do you stand for? Who are you? We talked about those diversity statements, right? So who are you? What do you stand for? That's what your storytelling is going to help you do.
Okay.
Yeah, and those walls are coming down even more nowadays. You talk about how the industry that we're in and all of these industries that we touch are evolving. And now we just said it to each other. These days, every person is a brand. And the expectation is that brands are more human, right? And so the we were talking about how the fact that B2B really is evolving to human to human. We've known this for a long time, but I think as we talk about storytelling, that is the point. People want to know that there's a real person behind that, or real people, and what are they about?
Yeah, I had someone debated me, not debated me, but they said that they don't see, that's a business term. I'm not a brand. I said, you know what? When you walk into a room, they look at you and said, get the job done, doesn't get the job done. Slacker, superstar. It's already there. It's already there. So you're going to be, you're already branded, whether you want to be or not. You may not call it that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're labeling you. And, you know, I know a lot of people sort of reject that. I'm not a brand, I'm a person. But if you're engaging on social media, everything you put out there helps shape who you are. It helps shape your persona. And we're also very, very conscious of that. We're all very critical of what we put out there on social media. And it's not just about how do I look, but it's how do I sound? What do I want to be associated with, right? Sometimes, as we know, we think about it too much. But I think it's kind of, the train's already left the station on whether or not you are a brand or a persona. That you are. What you do with that is up to you. But that's just the world we live in now.
Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking back about something else Heather said too about the insurance example. I think this goes back. So we've always been storytellers, and there are always stories to tell. When we started our careers, we were at more glamorous places like Martha Stewart and Money Magazine and those things. Toward the last couple of years, I've covered the food service industry, and that sounds sexy with restaurants, but most recently it was food service equipment, right? So big silver boxes, walk-in refrigerators, things like that. And it's like, well, where are the stories there? You know, but it's the same thing. There are people who are trying to get started in that business. There are people who have, you know, a story behind them and what brought them to that business, and their family that, you know, is driving that business. Those boxes sit inside of restaurants, and those restaurants themselves have a story and why they chose that product and how it supports that business that sits in a community and how that business serves that community. When you start to pull those threads, there's always a story. And I think that it just goes back to what Heather was saying about the talent and the skill. The talent part is being able to tell a good story, find the words, make people feel something. The skill is finding the story and putting it together, knowing what questions to ask, and knowing how to have a conversation in a way that's going to get people to tell something that they don't think is relevant. But as Heather said, this is really about making people, you know, in the insurance example, feel safe. So we may have to have a bigger conversation in order to get there. It's just, there are stories literally everywhere. And that's what makes this continue to be fun, and us be able to bring this agency and the work that we do to any kind of business, any kind of industry, any kind of need.
Yeah. So let's take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
This conversation is so interesting. This could go on and on, but I know we're coming up on time. I asked for an hour of your time. So I like to always begin the process of ending it. But one of the things I want to say is that when I asked you the question about storytelling, I remember sitting at my grandmother's house in the South. As I said, I told you I was from South Carolina, and she would tell these stories. And she didn't know what the word storytelling was about. I mean, she had no education, but she would tell these stories, and it would just spellbind you sitting there listening to this. And I've found that through my speaking opportunities, I tend to tell stories. I don't really go, I'm not going to talk you through bullet points. I'll just tell you a story about what this means and why you should do what you need to do as a result of that. So thank you for bringing clarity from a professional side to that. So my question is, and I'm going to ask both of you the same question. Tell us about an essential influence that has shaped who you become as a leader today. Heather, I'll go with you first.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So obviously I have to start with family influences, right? My family never told me that there was a thing that I couldn't do, which is, I think, is the key differentiator for a lot of people. My grandmother especially, Kelly and I have talked about her a lot. We've come up with ideas and ways to honor that spirit of saying to children, whatever it is out there that you can dream of, you can do that. Who says that you can't? Not taking limitations off of you. We called her Amy, and she absolutely, she's the reason I fell in love with magazines. And she is the one who made me believe that whoever those people are that put magazines together that you love, you can do that. You can be those people. So I think that is obviously one of the bigger influences. But career-wise, there've been so many people. We talked about Time Inc. Mark Golan, literally, he ran Time Inc. Interactive Digital at the time, literally was the person who taught me how to build and create websites. I would not have known how to do that if I'd not met him. Jody Jones, she was critical. We talk about Martha Stewart a lot today. She was the editorial director of the.com. She hired me and also told me, I need someone to run it, and you can do that, without having, known me until that interview. That was amazing. And I have to give a shout out to the woman. I told a story earlier about a client saying to me, well, if you started your own agency, I would hire you, Melissa Schilling. And she has been my client for many years now. Absolutely saying things that were in front of me, all of those. And that's what all of those people have in common. These things were obvious to them, less obvious to me. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to do those things. They made me believe that it was true. So for sure, I don't know, Kelly, who you'd mention.
Yeah, I think it's along the same vein. I think the most influential people in my career over this time have been people who hired me and for what they knew I could do, and then sat back and let me do it. Yeah. I've been fortunate to have more than one boss like that. Melissa Morgan at Martha Stewart is one of the ones that comes to mind. Teresa Trich at Money Magazine, where they said, you're talented. I want you to come do this thing. And sometimes it was a brand new thing. Neither of us knew what we were doing, but it was like, let's figure this out together. And that is something that I know shaped me. And it is something that has been so important to me as I hire other people, to hire people that are talented and then trust them to do the work and set them up for success and support them and all of that. But also allow them to do the work, trust them to do the work, and let them shine. So that has been the most influential thing. And I've probably had 3 or 4 people who have hired me who have done that. And I think the other biggest influence, I'll say, I know it may sound cheesy, but it has definitely been you and watching this journey of Wright Creative. I think early on, and we joked about having to hear things a few times when people said that, you can do this if you start an agency, we'll be along for the ride. I had to hear it multiple times from you, Heather, to say, and you've done it yourself. So you led by example, invest in yourself, have equity in yourself. And, to be honest, having done this for years and years and years, it's very easy to be like, well, it's much more comfortable to work for this company that has benefits and pays me every 2 weeks. And I've got this many days of vacation. And even if I'm fighting for every bit of it, at least I know what it is. Right. So to sit out there and do the scary part and have faith, so that you can invest in yourself and build equity in yourself, has been the lesson that I'm still learning, but it has been a huge influence on where I am right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I do leadership retreats across the globe. And that's one of the questions I always ask. And it's amazing how people can connect to something that happened years ago. It could be a grandmother, it could be a manager, it could be something that your child said that brings you to reality. And each one of your examples kind of takes us to that. Yeah. Because we have these influences in life and we never really think about it. And then all of a sudden something happens and you go back to an anchor at the city. You know, the stories my father would tell me. My father owned a taxi company. Not educated, quit school in the 8th grade, but was very successful. And I could not wait till he got home to tell me about the stories. And I got a degree in business. I learned more about business from him than I did in all these schools I've gone to.
Right. It's absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a common thread. That's what's so funny when we always talk to each other because we're friends and we're colleagues. You know, we talk to each other about these stories and we have similar stories. Heather mentioned her grandmother, you know, saying you can do anything. You can literally, and Ron, I would imagine you have the same thing. My mother does the same thing. You can do anything. And I remember being in college being like, no, but I can't do it.
Seriously, I failed that class. That one I failed.
Right.
You can do it. You can do anything. And I love that. I mean, and honestly, Black people, we've had to do that for our children because the world's going to tell you you can't. As soon as you step outside these walls, the world's going to tell you something different. Yeah. And so inside these walls, there's one thing I need you to know. You can do all the things. And it works.
And you know, it sounds simplistic when we look back on it now, but that was the anchor. And there have come times in your life and you've gone back to that and said, you know what? I was told this. You know, and you
believe it. You have to believe it. Yeah.
And not to sound too get off my lawn about it, I think the one thing I would say to people is try as much as possible not to burn bridges. I see a lot of that. I see people so fiercely protecting their peace and protecting their mental health, and those things are super important. But in the effort to do that, I don't think you need to burn every bridge. And I certainly don't think you need to torch the place if you're leaving. Now, I had every reason in the world when I left my agency to burn it down. Every reason.
Been there, done that.
Absolutely would have confessed, oh yeah, absolutely burn that place to the ground. But I didn't do it. For what?
Right.
It taught me one of the most valuable lessons that we talked about here, which is you can build equity in something. Why not build it in yourself? That's what I learned there. I don't need to burn it down. What I need to do is survive, right?
And get the lessons. And there's people that you're meeting along the way. This agency that we have now is pulling in all the smartest people that we have had the pleasure of working with and learning from over time. That's who we're made up of now. It's some people from that agency. It's some people from Stewart. It's some people from our, it's like, you know, when you've done this a long time, you build a really big network. And so not only are we able to bring those people in to help us do our work, it's a diverse network, right? We talked about how hard it was to, you know, to be the only one. Well, the advantage of that is that we found each other. And so we have a really, really diverse network of people that then we are able to bring with us to our clients, right? We have the diversity built in. And so, and that comes from forming these relationships along the way and not burning the bridges, even while you're taking care of yourself, because you have to do that too.
And see, this is why I said the hottest branding agency in the this is where I came from, because the vision and the branding you're bringing, a lot of other agencies are not going to be able to do that.
They're not. And what we always say to our clients to remind them is when you're hiring us, not only are you getting good content, good marketing, but you're achieving your diversity initiative, right? And your diversity initiative is not about checking the box, although you have mandates around that about diverse suppliers and your need to use vendors who are minority owned, Black owned, women owned. We have all of those certifications, and that's appealing these days. But what you're also doing is your deeper commitment to diversity is about equity. And we remind them your deeper commitment to diversity is about helping to build diverse economies. So when you hire us, you're helping to build a Black diverse economy. And then we have LGBTQ members, Latinx members on our team, where you're helping to build those communities as well. And so for people who, and I still have people today say to me, well, why do I need to hire a Black agency? Why is that important? Why can't I just hire an agency that hires Black people? You can, but my ownership helps build equity in the Black community, right? I support Black causes. I support my Black church. I support my hairdresser. I support my nail technician. I'm building a Black economy just by existing. And so when you help me, when you hire me, you're helping to do that. And I think that's the thing that we don't often take time to understand. Everybody just looks at the surface. Oh, this is about discrimination. You have to hire an agency because they're Black. It's not about that. It's about the fact that we have been for hundreds of years locked out of the mainstream economy.
Yeah.
And since we're outside of the mainstream economy, we have had to create our own economy and support our own economy. And that's what we're doing just by existing. We're supporting all of these underserved communities.
Mm-hmm. And we're also that agency with that background, right? So any other, I would dare you, challenge you to hold us up against another agency who has people with, now that I will name the number of years, decades, right, of experience at the largest media brands in the industry, at decades of experience at the largest, working and doing content for the largest brands in the industry. And this goes back to what you said, Ron, about, showing up in the room and people making sure that you're real. We're real. We've done this. We've put in this work. You can go check it out. And then on top of that is everything that Heather just said. So I love that you're calling us the hottest brand, the hottest agency in the business. I think that we're extremely unique for all of those reasons.
I did the research.
Yeah.
Research.
I did the research. I did the research and I looked at your client list. You don't get those kind of clients just by being, I'm here and you want to check the box.
Right.
That's because you're doing good work.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
That's where all that came from, because I spent a lot of time the week before going through everything, Googling everything to do what I have to do from my side to make sure it's interesting. So what's next?
Yeah. I love that question. So we love the integrated marketing that we're doing for our clients, TIA, Train, Sunbelt Rentals. We love that work. We'll continue to do that work. We're excited to be pulled in different ways into our clients. We like long ongoing engagements, and we're getting a chance to do some of that. But for us, what I'm super excited about is the sort of long form storytelling that we're getting a chance to do. I just served as supervisor on a documentary called The Milestone Generation about the first Black comic book company. It's on HBO Max now. We have a project called The Bison Project, which is a documentary and podcast about the Howard University NCAA Division I title champions in soccer in 1971. A lot of people don't know that. Howard University won that title, beat powerhouse St. Louis in 1971 and in 1974. So we're telling that story. We're excited about that. We have a documentary series called Can't Retire From This about women and basketball and the passion that women have for basketball in the DMV and in other cities across the country. Our young director, Mel Page, did a fantastic job interviewing over 60 high school, college, and WNBA players. So we're super excited to bring those kinds of stories to people, and honestly to brands who want to align themselves with that type of storytelling. So that's what you'll see from us in the coming year. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that on your bio. As I was trying to prepare for this, and when I looked at your Heather, when I looked at your bio and Kelly's bio, I said it would take me a half hour to get through this. All the accomplishments, I have an hour to kind of create a conversation. But I saw that about the project, with HBO Max, and I mean that's huge because that expands it into a totally different new era.
Yeah.
From what you're doing now. At Howard University, I am a facilitator at the EMBA program at Howard University School of Business. So I do the thing there once a year, maybe once per quarter in that session. So all that's cool. So if I were to come back to you in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what will we be talking about?
Oh, you'll probably be asking us how our trip to the Cannes Awards were, the Cannes Lion Awards were, and how it felt winning an award, such a prestigious award as a small upstart agency. No, I'm kidding, but I would love to take our storytelling to a larger stage. Mark always calls them, as I said earlier, untold stories. And we thrive on that. We thrive on finding them, especially when they come from the Black community, because we have a lot of making up to do, right? Getting the story out about our accomplishments and our, our stories of perseverance and love and joy. And I feel like really the country and the world needs to be reintroduced to Black people, because we haven't been able to tell our own stories for so long. And there are millions upon millions of them to be told, and we're just chipping away at them. And I think I also get excited about brands partnering with us in that, because I think business has an obligation to help us get some of those stories told. So 5 years from now, I think we'll be talking about great storytelling that we're doing with some of the largest, most wonderful brands in the world.
Wow. Kelly.
I agree. That's why I'm here, right? I mean, I think as we've said, we've been telling these stories behind the scenes. I think I would love for more of these types of experiences where people start to associate Wright Creative with some of these types of stories in the business, right? And if you have a story to tell like that, that you come to us and that you realize that, we're going to be the ones who can tell that story better than anybody else. And so I think just having more conversations, continuing to be out there, continuing to get our work seen is going to be the best part of it. And I can think of no better way to be at this stage in my career where you actually get to do the stuff that you love every day with your friends. I mean, it's just better.
That's the perfect shape. I mean, you've got everything there, all the boxes are checked. So that's cool. So cool. So guys, thank you so much. I know it went a little over an hour, but it was absolutely fantastic. The wine is chilled from my side. And I gotta have 2 glasses because your day is just starting. My day is ending. It's PM here in Dubai. But thank you so much. And I'm gonna be in touch. Next time I come down that way, before I go to my big city, I'm gonna give it out and come over and we'll all go out and have dinner.
I would love it. I would love it. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. We're gonna close out now. Thank you.
All right.